Welcome to Chinese History and Mythology.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back, and welcome to Chinese History and Mythology. Last time, we talked about how Jin Huigong Yi Wu took the throne and then quickly turned his back on his promises. He refused to give Li Ka the Fenyang estates he had once promised. He also promoted his own inner circle, including Guo Shi, Lu Yisheng, and Shi Ri, while pushing aside the older ministers. Li Ka was already unhappy, and then, in court, when he urged Yi Wu to keep the agreement and hand over the cities to Qin, Shi Ri twisted his words and accused him of speaking for personal gain. Li Ka swallowed his anger in public, but once he stepped out of the court gate, the resentment showed on his face. At the same time, Zheng Fu asked to go as an envoy to Qin. Shi Ri feared that Zheng Fu and Li Ka might be working together in secret, so he sent people to watch them. Zheng Fu also sensed he was being watched. He chose not to say goodbye to Li Ka and left the city early. Li Ka could not rest, so he drove out himself to catch up, but he did not reach him. That single move became the excuse Shi Ri used to report to Huigong. Shi Ri then fanned the flames in front of Huigong. He said Li Ka held grudges and had always favored Chang'er, and that one day Li Ka might join hands with Chang'er from inside and outside. He urged Huigong to strike first and remove the danger. Huigong worried about what might come later, and he finally agreed. Shi Ri used the charge that Li Ka had killed the two young rulers, Shixi and Zhou, and also killed the minister Sun Shi, which was a serious crime against the law of the state. He forced Li Ka to take his own life. Li Ka cried out that he had been wrong, and then cut his own throat with his sword. Huigong was pleased, but many ministers in the court were angry inside, though they kept quiet for the moment. After that, Huigong spoke again of the message from Mu Ji. She had told him to treat Jiazhen well, and to bring back the other princes who were still in exile. Shi Ri advised him not to recall the princes, and said he only needed to take care of Jiazhen on the surface to satisfy Mu Ji. Huigong went to the inner palace to see Jiazhen. She still looked young, and Huigong's desire rose at once. He used Mu Ji's name as an excuse and forced himself on her. After it was done, Jiazhen wept and begged him to clear Shensheng's name, to build a proper tomb and shrine, and to give him a posthumous title so his spirit could rest. Huigong agreed. He arranged to move Shensheng's burial, gave him the posthumous title Gong Taizi, and sent Hu Tu to offer sacrifices at the grave. After the reburial and the rites, Hu Tu had a strange and heavy dream on his way back. He seemed to be led by Du Yongquan, and then he saw Crown Prince Shensheng himself, dressed as he was in life. Shensheng said heaven had recognized his kindness and filial loyalty and made him the lord of Qiao Mountain. He said he despised Yi Wu's low character, and at one point he even wanted to hand Jin over to the kind and wise ruler of Qin. Hu Tu stopped him right away. He said the people of Jin were not guilty, and the ancestors of Jin were not guilty. Shensheng admitted Hu Tu's words made sense. He said he would report again to the Heavenly Emperor, and that in 7 days he would send a message through a shaman living west of Xincheng. When Hu Tu woke up, he did not tell others. He stayed quietly at the guest house. 7 days later, the shaman came exactly as promised and delivered Shensheng's message. Heaven would punish only that one man, cut off his descendants, and no longer drag the state and the people into it. Hu Tu later told this in private to Bao, the son of Zheng Fu. Bao said Yi Wu was stubborn and cruel and would not last, and that Jin would end up belonging to Chang'er. Meanwhile, another thread was moving in the shadows. Zheng Fu returned from Qin with the minister Lang Ji and several carts of gifts, planning to lure Lu Yisheng and Shi Ri into Qin. On the road, he heard that Li Ke had already been killed. He became suspicious and wanted to turn back to Qin to rethink things, but he could not stop worrying about his son Bao in the capital. Gong Hua happened to be outside the city at that time and advised him to act as if he knew nothing and enter the city normally. Hui Gong saw the rich gifts from Qin, and he also saw that Qin returned the written contract. He was pleased and almost agreed to send Lu and Shi to Qin, but Shi Ri and Lu Yisheng felt danger. They refused, and they tightened their surveillance of Zheng Fu. In the end, Shi Ri and Lu Yisheng set a new trap. They first frightened Tuan Yi, saying Li Ke was dead and he would be next. Tuan Yi panicked and begged for a way out. Shi Ri then taught him to act. He should pretend to flee to Zheng Fu, join Zheng Fu's group, trick them into giving him clear proof that they planned to bring Chang'er back, and then turn around and report them for merit. That very night, Tuan Yi went to Zheng Fu's door crying for help. He claimed he needed a secret letter to invite Chang'er back to Jin. Zheng Fu was doubtful, but Tuan Yi swore with blood, and Zheng Fu finally agreed to meet again at the third watch the next night. That is where last time ended. The chain trap was already in place. Where would Tuan Yi lead Zhengfu and the others? And how much worse would the chaos in Jin become? Today, we continue. It is said that Guanzhong, while lying sick, warned Du Quan again and again to watch out for Yi Ya, Xu Randiao, and Kai Fang. He also recommended that Gongsun Peng should take over the role of chief minister. Someone heard this and told Yi Ya. Yi Ya then went to Bao Shuya's home and said, Guanzhong became the chancellor of Qi because you recommended him. Today our lord visited him while he was ill, yet he said you are not fit to hold the chancellorship, and instead he recommended Xi Peng. I really cannot accept this for you. Bao Shuya laughed loudly and said, That is exactly why I wanted to recommend Guanzhong in the first place. He puts the state first and does not protect friends for personal feelings. As for me, if you ask me to serve as an officer of justice, catching thieves and driving out corrupt men, I can do more than enough. But if you ask me to become chancellor and run the state, could your group still live safely in Qi then? Yi Ya left in deep shame. A day later, Du Quan went again to visit Guanzhong. By then, Guanzhong could no longer speak. Xi Peng and Bao Shuya stood by and wept. That night, Guanzhong died. Du Quan cried loudly and said, Heaven has taken my father Zhong. It is like breaking my arm. Du Quan ordered the High Minister Gao Hu to manage Guanzhong's funeral on his behalf. He also ordered that Guanzhong's son inherit his father's fief, so that the Guan family would serve as key officials for generations. Yi Ya then went to the minister Boshi and said, In the past, our lord took 300 units of land from your fief in Pianyi and rewarded them to Father Zhong. Now that Father Zhong is dead, why do you not ask our lord to give that land back? I am willing to help you from the side. Boshi wept and said, I had no merit for the state, so our lord reduced my land. Even though Father Zhong has died, his merit is still there. How could I have the face to ask for it back? Yi Ya sighed and said, Even in death, Guanzhong can still make Boshi submit from the heart. People like us really are true villains. Du Quan followed Guanzhong's last advice and made Gongsun Peng chancellor. But in less than a month, Gongsun Peng also fell ill and died. Du Quan sighed and said, Father Zhong truly was a sage. How could he know Xi Peng would not be able to assist me for long? He then ordered Bao Shuya to take over as chancellor. Bao Shuya refused with all his strength. Du Quan said, Among all the officials in my court, no one is more worthy than you. Who do you want to give this position to? Bao Shuya answered, I hate evil too strongly and I cannot tolerate people easily. Your lordship knows this well. If you insist on using me as chancellor, then you must first drive out Yi Ya, Xu Randiao, and Kai Fang. Only then would I dare to accept. Du Quan said, Father Zhong already expected you would say that. I have no choice but to listen. That same day, he removed those three from office and expelled them, and he forbade them to enter court again. Only then did Bao Shuya accept the appointment as chancellor. Soon after, tribes from the Huai River region invaded the state of Qi. The people of Qi asked Qi for military help. Du Quan gathered the rulers of Song, Lu, Chen, Wei, Zheng, Su, and Kiao, and led the alliance in person to rescue Qi. They drove the invaders back and helped Qi move its capital to Yongling. Because Duke Huang used Bao Shuya and did not change Guangzhong's policies, the other lords still followed his orders. Now, after Jin Huigong took the throne, Jin suffered disasters year after year. By the 5th year, the disaster was even worse. The state treasury was empty, and the people had no grain left at all. Huigong wanted to ask other states for grain. Among the neighboring states, only Qin was close. And Qin and Jin also had marriage ties for generations, so he planned to ask Qin for relief grain. But he had once broken faith with Qin, and now he truly felt embarrassed to open his mouth. Shiri then said, We did not break the agreement. We only delayed the date of handing over the land. If we ask Qin for grain and they refuse, then it is they who break the friendship first. And then, if we cancel the land agreement, we will have a proper reason. Huigong said, Your words make sense. So he sent Qing Zhang with gifts to Qin to ask for grain. Mugong of Qin called his ministers and asked, Jin once promised to give us 5 cities, then broke the promise and refused. Now they face famine and ask us for help. Should we send grain or not? Zhan Shu and Bai Lishi answered together, Disasters can strike any state. Saving people in famine follows the way of heaven. If we act in line with heaven, we will gain heaven's blessing. Mu Gong said, "We have already shown Jin enough kindness." Gong Sunji supported Zhen Shu and Bai Li Shi. He said, "If we give kindness and receive repayment, that does not harm Qin at all. And even if we receive no repayment, the fault is on their side. They will be hated by their own people for breaking faith. When that happens, if we later raise troops, how could we not win battle after battle?" Bao wanted revenge for his father. He stepped forward and said, "The ruler of Jin is cruel and violent, so heaven sent disaster to punish him. Now we should seize this moment of famine and internal trouble and attack at once to destroy Jin. This is a gift from heaven." Yu opposed him. He said, "A humane man does not profit from another's danger, and a wise man does not rely on lucky chances for success. In my view, we should still agree to help Jin." Mugong listened to all sides and made his decision. He said, "The ungrateful one is the ruler of Jin, but the starving ones are the people of Jin. I cannot hate their ruler and, because of that, watch their people die in famine." He immediately ordered tens of thousands of loads of grain to be taken from the granaries and shipped by water, first along the Wei River, then through the Yellow River, and then up the Fen River, to the regions of Jin for relief. Mugong named this water transport mission the Campaign of Boats. When the people of Jin saw that Qin sent grain to save them, they were all deeply moved, and many wept with gratitude. The historian praised it in verse, meaning this: Jin's ruler brought disaster through his own wrongdoing, yet Qin still sent grain to relieve the suffering. Who would repay hatred with kindness like this? Mugong's generosity was truly rare. The next year, Qin suffered famine, while Jin had a rich harvest. Mugong said to Jin Shu and Bai Li Shi, "Today I remembered what you both said. Good years and bad years are hard to predict. If I had refused to send grain last year, I would not be able to ask Jin for grain this year." Bao said from the side, "The ruler of Jin is greedy and has no faith. Even if we ask, he will not send grain to Qin." Mugong did not believe that. He sent Lang Ji with rich gifts to Jin to ask for grain. Jin Huigong planned to send grain from the lands west of the Yellow River to help Qin, but Shiri stopped him. Shiri said, "If you give grain to Qin, will you also give them land and cities?" Huigong said, "I will only give them grain. Why would I give them land and cities?" Shiri asked, "Then why do you want to send grain to Qin?" Huigong answered, "To repay their campaign of boats from last year." Shiri said, "If you treat their boat relief as a great merit, then their merit in helping you take the throne was even greater. You ignore the great merit and repay the small one. What kind of logic is that?" Qingzheng said, "Last year I was sent to ask Qin for grain, and Qin agreed at once. They were very generous. If we refuse them now, we may provoke their hatred." Lu Yisheng said, "Qin did not give us grain for our sake. They did it to pressure us for land and cities. If we do not give grain, they will hate us. If we give grain but still do not give land, they will also hate us. Either way, we will be hated, so why give them grain at all?" Qin Zhen raised his voice and said, "To take joy in others' suffering is not humane. To repay kindness with hatred is not righteous. If we act without humanity and righteousness, how can we keep the state stable?" Han Jian supported Qingzheng. He said, "Qingzheng is right. If Qin had refused to give grain last year, what would you have thought then?" "The royal in-law, Guan," she said. "Last year, heaven took Jin's grain and gave Qin a great harvest. Qin did not store it well and instead lent it to us. That was their foolishness. This year, heaven has taken Qin's food and sent it to Jin. How can we go against heaven and send it back to Qin? In my view, we should join forces with Liang and attack Qin while Qin is in famine. That is the best plan." Huigong accepted Guo Shei's advice. He summoned the Qin envoy Lang Ji and refused, saying, "Our state has suffered famine for years. Our people have been displaced. Even though we have a good harvest this year, it is only enough for ourselves. We truly have no ability to help your state." Lang Ji said, "Our ruler remembers the marriage ties between Qin and Jin. He did not ask you for land or cities, and he helped you openly. He only asked that we share hardship together. This year, our state suffers, yet your state refuses to help. I truly cannot explain this to my ruler. Liu Yisheng and Xi Rui shouted. You once joined with Zanfu and tried to trick us into king with rich gifts so you could kill us. Only because heaven exposed your plot did we escape your trap, and now you still dare to speak cleverly here. Go back and tell your ruler this. If Qin wants grain from Jin, then send troops and take it. Lan Ji returned to Qin full of anger. After leaving court, Qing Zheng said to the diviner, Guo Yan, Our Lord breaks faith and repays kindness with hatred, and now he has angered a neighboring state. It looks like great disaster is coming to Jin. Guo Yan nodded and sighed. He said, This autumn, Shalu Mountain collapsed without reason, and trees fell and broke everywhere. That is a sign of a state falling. He sighed again and again. The historian mocked Huigong in verse, meaning this. Qin traveled far by water to relieve Jin's famine. Yet when Qin faced famine, Jin turned away. Ungrateful people exist in every age, but few are as ungrateful as Jin Huigong. Lan Ji returned to Qin and reported to Mu Gong. Jin not only refuses to send grain, they also plan to join Liang and invade us. Mu Gong was furious. He said, How can someone be so ungrateful? I will send troops at once, first to destroy Liang, and then to punish Jin. Bai Lixi advised. The ruler of Liang loves grand projects and wastes strength on building. The people resent him, and he cannot gather real forces to fight with Jin. Jin's ruler is faithless. But Jin is large and has many people, and Lu Yisheng and Xi Rui support him fully. If we march far to attack Liang first, our own rear will be empty, and Jin may threaten us. The art of war says, strike first to control the situation. In my view, we should attack Jin first. Mu Gong agreed. He left Zhenshu and Yu Yu to help the crown prince guard the capital. He put Bai Lixi in charge of border defense, then he and Bai Lixi led the main army. Gong Senji commanded the right wing. Gong Ziji commanded the left wing. Shi Qishu and Jian Bing guarded the central force and escorted the ruler. They mobilized 400 war chariots and marched in full force toward Jin. When Jin Huigong heard Qin was coming, he rushed to gather his ministers and asked, Qin is attacking us for no reason. How should we respond? Qing Zheng said, Qin attacks because you broke faith and repaid kindness with hatred. How can it be called an attack for no reason? In my view, we should admit fault and seek peace. Hand over the 5 cities you once promised, then the 2 states can end the war, and the people can avoid suffering. Huigong was enraged, he said. With Jin's power, I should give land to beg for peace. How could I still have the face to rule? He shouted to his attendants, First, execute Qing Zheng, then raise troops to meet Qin in battle, Guo Shi advised from the side. Before the army moves, you would kill a key commander. That may harm our forces. Better spare him and let him follow the army to atone. Huigong agreed. That same day, he reviewed the troops and selected 600 war chariots. He appointed Qi Baiyang, Jia Putu, Qing Zhang, and Yi Shi to command the left and right wings. Tuan Yi was made the vanguard. Huigong and Gua She held the central camp. They moved out from Zhang City and marched west. The horse that pulled Huigong's chariot was called Shaoxi. It had once been presented by the state of Zhang. It was small, with a glossy coat, and it ran smoothly. Huigong loved it dearly. When Qing Zhang saw Huigong using a foreign horse to drive the war chariot in a life and death campaign, he became deeply worried. He quickly advised, when armies go to war, they should use horses from their own state. Those horses understand our handlers and know the roads, so in battle the chariot can be controlled without mistakes. Now you face a battle that will decide life or death, yet you ride a horse from another state. I fear it is not a good sign. Huigong did not listen. He scolded Qing Zhang and said, I always ride this horse. Do not meddle in my affairs. Qing crossed the river and advanced east. Battle after battle, they kept winning, like a blade cutting through bamboo. On this day, they reached Hangyuan, and Mu Gong ordered the 3 armies to set up camp. When Huigong heard that Qin had already attacked as far as Haiyun, he felt troubled. He asked the generals, The enemy has pushed deep into our land. What should we do now? Qing Zheng cut in from the side, saying, You brought this on yourself. Why ask anyone else? Huigong snapped in anger. Qing Zheng, you are rude and defy your ruler. step back at once. The Jin army arrived and camped 10 li away from Hanyuan. Hui Gong sent Han Jian to scout the Qin camp and check their strength. Before long, Han Jian returned and reported, "Qin has fewer men than we do, but their morale is 10 times higher." Hui Gong asked why. Han Jian answered, "When my lord once fled, you chose Liang because it was close to Qin. Later, you relied on Qin's help to take the throne. After that, Jin survived famine because Qin sent grain. 3 times you received favor, and not once did you repay it. Qin's ruler and ministers are angry, so they came to attack. Now Qin's whole army is of one mind. Everyone blames you for being ungrateful and faithless. How could their morale be only 10 times higher?" Hui Gong's face darkened. He said, "Those are Qing Zheng's words. Why do you speak the same way? I will fight Qing to the death." Then he ordered Han Jian to go to the Qing camp and issue a challenge. He said, "I have 600 war chariots and tens of thousands of soldiers, and I am waiting for you. If you are afraid, then withdraw. If not, then even if I wanted to avoid you, the 3 armies of Jin would never allow it." Mu Gong sneered and said, "Such an ignorant boy, yet so arrogant." He ordered Gong Sanji to answer from outside the camp. "When you wanted to return and take the throne, I sent troops to help you. When you wanted grain for famine, I sent grain to you. Today you want to start a war. How could I refuse you?" When Han Jian heard this, fear rose in his heart. He thought to himself, "Qin has reason on their side, and they stand upright in the open. If we fight tomorrow, our army will surely be crushed." Before battle the next day, Jin Hui Gong ordered the grand diviner Guan Yan to divine who should serve as the chariot guard on the ruler's right. The omens for all the generals were unlucky. Only Qin Zeng was suitable, but Hui Gong refused and said, "Qin Zeng is in league with Qin. How can I let him guard me?" So he appointed Jiapu too as the right side guard, had Shai Baoyang drive the chariot, and led the army to meet Qin at Hanyuan. Bai Lishi climbed a platform to observe the enemy. He saw that Jin's forces were far larger than Qin's and quickly urged Mu Gong to hold the camp and not rush into open battle. Mu Gong pointed to the sky and said, "Jin has wronged Qin too deeply. If there is no justice in heaven, then so be it. But if heaven knows, my army will win." He refused Bai Lishi's advice. Beneath Longmen Mountain, he set the battle line and waited for Jin to arrive. Soon, the Jin army formed up as well. The 2 sides faced each other. War drums shook the sky. Jin's general, Tuan Yi, held a heavy iron spear and drove his chariot straight into the Qin formation, stabbing at anyone he met. Qin's general, Bai Yibing, rode out to meet him. They fought 50 exchanges with no clear winner. Both men grew fiercer and fiercer. In the end, they jumped down from their chariots and grappled on the ground. Tuan Yi shouted, "I will fight you to life or death. Anyone who calls for help is no true man." Bai Yibing shouted back, "If I do not capture you alive, I will not stop." Jin, Hui, Gong saw Tuan Yi break into the enemy line. He quickly ordered Han Jian and Liang Youmi to lead troops to the left. He himself, with Jiapu Tu and others, led troops to the right, striking hard at the Qin main formation. Mu Gong saw Jin split into 2 attacks, and he divided the Qin army as well to meet them. Hui Gong's right wing charged forward and ran straight into Gong Sanji. Hui Gong ordered Jiapu Tu to go up and fight, but Gong Sanji had the courage of 1,000 men. Jiapu Tu could not hold him. Seeing this, Hui Gong told Shi Baiyang, "Drive carefully. I will go forward myself to help." Gong Sanji showed no fear. He raised his halberd and shouted, "All of you who can fight, come at me together." The roar was like a thunderclap in a clear sky. It scared the royal in-law Guaxi out of his wits. Guaxi crouched inside the chariot and did not dare lift his head. The horse Xiaosei had never been through a battle. Now it was startled by Gong Sanji's roar. It stopped obeying the reins and ran wildly. It finally dragged the chariot into a muddy bog. Shi Baiyang whipped hard, but the horse was small and weak, and it could not pull its legs free. At that moment, Qin Zheng drove up in a fast chariot. Hui Gong shouted, "Qian Jing, come save me." Qin Zheng mocked him. Where is the royal in-law Guo? Why do you not ask him to save you? Why call for me? Hui Gong shouted again. Qing Zheng, hurry and take me away in your chariot. Qing Zheng answered, My lord, you stay right where you are on your Shaoxi. I will go find someone else to bring a chariot to carry you away. Then he turned his chariot and sped off to the left. Meanwhile, Han Jian led troops on the left and broke into the enemy. He ran straight into Qin Mugong's central force. Han Jian fought fiercely with the Qing general Shu, and neither side could gain the advantage. Then the Jin general Yi Shi arrived with more troops and attacked Shu together with Han Jian. Shu could not hold. Han Jian stabbed him with a halberd and wounded him. Liang Yomi shouted, Join forces first and seize the ruler of Qin. Han Jian stopped chasing Shu and drove straight toward Mugong's chariot, trying to capture Mugong alive. Mugong saw this and let out a long sigh. Who would have thought that today I might be taken prisoner by Jin? Is there truly no justice in this world? Before his words even fell, a band of warriors burst out from the west. More than 300 men. Each one had wild hair and bare arms. They swung great blades and shouted, Do not harm our benefactor. They cut through the line like a storm. Han Jian and Liang Yumi were about to gather troops to meet them, when they suddenly saw Qing Zheng rush in from the north in a flying chariot, shouting, Do not cling to this fight. Pull back at once and go save our lord. Our lord is trapped by Qin troops in the mud beneath Longmen Mountain. Once Han Jian heard this, he no longer had the heart to keep fighting those warriors. He hurried and led his forces toward Longmen Mountain, but when they reached the mountain, Gong Sunji had already captured and bound Jin Huigong, and Guo Xian had taken them back to the Qin camp. Han Jian stamped his foot and groaned. If we had captured the ruler of Qin, we could have traded him back for our lord. Now we lost both. Qing Zheng ruined us. Liang Yumi said, Our lord is already in Qin hands. Where can we run? So he and Han Jian threw down their weapons and went to the Qin camp to surrender. Those 300 warriors drove the Jin troops back. They first rescued Mugong, then saved the wounded Shiki soldiers, seized the moment and pressed the attack, crushing the Jin army. Beneath Longmen Mountain, Jin corpses piled like hills, and almost all 600 war chariots fell into Qin hands. When Xingzheng heard that Huigong had been captured, he secretly stayed behind. On the battlefield, he rescued the wounded Yi Shi, helped him onto a chariot, and brought him back to Jin. The old poet wrote of the great battle of Henyuan. His meaning was this: Beneath Longmen Mountain lay countless bodies, all because a foolish ruler would not repay kindness. Good and evil were judged on the field, and heaven's way was not blind. Mugong returned to the Qin camp and said to Bai Lixi, I did not heed your loyal words. Today I nearly caused the entire army to be destroyed. Those 300 warriors all knelt at the front of the camp and bowed. Mugong asked, Who are you, and why did you risk your lives to save me? They answered, Do you not remember the year your royal horses were lost? We are the ones who ate the horse meat. It turned out that once Mugong had hunted at Liang Mountain, in the middle of the night, several royal horses were stolen. Mugong ordered men to search. A local officer found them at the foot of Qi Mountain and saw more than 300 wild men sitting around and eating horse meat. The officer did not dare make trouble. He hurried back and reported, If you send troops to surround them, you can catch them all at once. Mugong refused. He said, The horses are already dead. If I send men to arrest and kill them for this, the people will think I value animals and treat human life as cheap. He then ordered dozens of jars of fine wine taken from the army stores and sent to the foot of Qi Mountain as a gift to those wild men. He also sent a message, If you eat too much horse meat and do not drink wine, it will harm your body. The wild men bowed to thank him and praised him together, saying, We stole and ate horse meat, yet the ruler not only does not punish us, he even thinks of our health and sends us wine. Such great kindness, we will repay one day. When they later heard Mugong was leading troops to attack Jin, they all rushed to Hongyuan to help. Just as Mugong was surrounded today, those 300 brave men charged out and saved him. Then the story adds a saying, meaning this: You reap what you sow. Small kindness brings small return. Great kindness brings great return. If someone receives kindness and does not repay it, he is no better than a beast. After hearing this, Mu Gong looked up to the sky and sighed. Even wild men know gratitude. What kind of man is this Hui Gong, really? Mu Gong asked the warriors, "Who is willing to stay and take office? I will surely promote you." They answered together, "We are people of the mountains and wild lands. We came only to repay your great kindness. We do not want office." Mu Gong wanted to reward them heavily again, but they refused and left. Mu Gong sighed again and again. Later, people wrote in verse, meaning this: if Mu Gong had executed those horse-eating men back then, how could he have escaped the trap today? Mu Gong counted the troops and could not find the general Bai Yibing. He had once sent soldiers to search. Someone heard groans coming from a well. They went down and found Bai Yibing and Tuan Yi inside. The two men had fallen into the well during their fight. Both were exhausted and half unconscious. Yet they were still locked together and would not let go. The soldiers forced them apart, lifted them onto a war chariot, and brought them back to the Qin camp. Mu Gong went forward to question Bai Yibing, but Bai Yibing could not speak. Some men had seen the fight and reported the whole course of events to Mu Gong. Mu Gong sighed. Both of them are true heroes. He turned and asked the generals, "Does anyone know this brave Jin warrior?" Gong Zaizhi walked up to the chariot, looked once, and said, "This man is Tuan Yi of Jin. In the past, I was sent to offer condolences to Chang'er and Yiwu. He was also sent by Jin ministers to welcome the two princes. We met at a roadside lodge, so I recognize him." Mu Gong asked, "Can he be kept for Qin to use?" Gong Ziji shook his head and said, "He killed the young ruler Zhou, and he killed the minister Zhang Fu and others. All of that was done by his hand. Today he should be executed by law." Mu Gong then ordered Tuan Yi beheaded. After that, he took off his own brocade robe and personally covered Bai Yibing with it. He ordered Bai Li Shi to take Bai Yibing back to Qin in a warm carriage for treatment first. After taking medicine, Bai Yibing vomited much blood and needed half a year of rest before he recovered. That is a later matter. Mu Gong had won a great victory. He ordered the Qin army to break camp and return. He also sent a message to the captive Hui Gong. "You said you would not avoid me, so now I cannot avoid you either. When we return to Qin, I will then come to ask your pardon." Hui Gong lowered his head and said nothing. Mu Gong ordered Gong Sanzhi to lead 100 war chariots to escort Hui Gong to Qin. The Jin officials Guo Shi, Han Jian, Liang Yumi, Jia Putu, Xi Baoyang, Guo Yan, Xi Qi, and the others followed behind, hair loose and faces filthy, like mourners at a funeral. Mu Gong sent men to comfort the Jin officials, saying, "You and your ruler once said that if Qin wanted Jin grain, we must take it by force. I keep your ruler only to obtain grain. I dare not have any other plan. You gentlemen need not worry." Han Jian and the others knelt and thanked him, saying, "You pity our ruler's foolishness and punish him lightly, without going too far. How could we not be grateful to the point of tears?" After the army returned to the borders of Qin, Mu Gong summoned his ministers and discussed what to do next. He said, "Earlier I accepted the Heavenly Emperor's command to settle the chaos in Jin and to support Yiwu as ruler. Yiwu is ungrateful to me, which is also disloyal to heaven. Now I want to execute him and offer a sacrifice outside the city to thank the Heavenly Emperor for protection. What do you all think?" Gong Zaiji answered, "My lord is completely right." But Gong Sanzhi opposed him and said, "This must not be done. Jin is a great state. Taking its ruler as captive already makes it furious. If we execute its ruler as well, Jin will form a deep blood feud with Qin. Then hatred will repay hatred without end. How could that be born?" Gong Zaiji said, "My meaning is not only to execute their ruler, I also want to help Jin set up Gongzei Chong'er as the new ruler. We remove a cruel and foolish ruler and install a worthy one, then the people of Jin will thank us and will never hate Qin." Gong Sanji argued back, "Chong'er is an upright gentleman. The bond between father and son is not so different from the bond between brothers. Chong'er would not seize the throne while his father's funeral was still fresh. How could he seize it after his brother's death? If Chang'e refuses to return, and we set up someone else, how is that any different from letting Yiwu rule? But if Chang'e does return to take the throne, he will surely resent Qin, because his brother died by our hands. What good would that do for Qin? Mugong asked Gongsunji. Then what should we do? Should we exile him, imprison him, or let him return to Jin and keep the throne? Gongsunji replied, If we imprison him, we imprison a useless man. If we exile him to another state, he will plot to return to Jin sooner or later. It is better to send him back to Jin. Mugong asked in confusion, Then would we not lose everything we have gained? Gongsunji said, We will not send him back so easily. First, he must hand over the 5 cities west of the river to us. Second, he must leave Jin, Crown Prince Yu, and Qin as a hostage. If we do this, the ruler of Jin will never again dare to oppose Qin for the rest of his life. And later, when the father dies and the son succeeds, we can support Crown Prince Yu as the new ruler. Crown Prince Yu will be grateful to Qin. If we can make Jin obey Qin generation after generation, is that not even better for Qin? Mugong was delighted when he heard this. He praised Gongsunji and said, Zisang truly plans like a master. You have even thought through what will happen 100 years from now. So he kept Jin Huigong under guard at the detached palace on Lingtai Mountain and left 1,000 men to watch him. After Qin Mugong finished arranging matters for Jin Huigong, he was about to set out with the army. Just then, he suddenly saw a group of eunuchs and palace attendants, dressed in mourning clothes, rushing toward him. Mugong was about to ask what had happened when they relayed Lady Muji's words to him. They said, Heaven has sent disaster, and Qin and Jin have met in war. Now the ruler of Jin has been captured. This is not only a humiliation for Jin, it is also a humiliation for me. If my husband drags the ruler of Jin back into the Qin capital, then if he enters the city in the morning, I will die in the morning. If he enters the city at night, I will die at night. Today I have specially sent attendants in mourning clothes to meet my husband. If you spare the ruler of Jin, it is the same as sparing me. Please decide for yourself. Mugong was shocked and asked quickly, What is my wife doing in the palace right now? The attendants replied, As soon as the lady heard that the ruler of Jin had been captured, she led the crown prince, put on mourning clothes, and left the palace. She went to a high terrace in the back garden and built a small hut of reeds to live in. Beneath the terrace, dozens of layers of firewood have been stacked. The lady ordered us, saying, The moment the ruler of Jin enters the city, I will kill myself on the terrace, and then set fire to burn my body. I will do this to show the blood bond between brother and sister. Mugong sighed and said, Thanks to Zisang's advice, I did not kill the ruler of Jin, otherwise I would almost have lost my wife's life because of it. So he ordered the attendants to take off their mourning clothes and go back to tell Muji, I will soon send the ruler of Jin back to Jin. Only then did Muji lead the crown prince back into the palace. The attendants knelt and asked Muji, The ruler of Jin forgets kindness as soon as he sees profit. He betrayed our lord's help, and he also failed your trust. Now he has been captured by our lord. He brought this on himself. Why are you grieving for him so deeply? Muji said, People often say that a benevolent and worthy person, even when holding resentment, must not forget the blood bond of family. If the ruler of Jin is killed by Qin, then I will not escape blame either. The attendants nodded and agreed. But how would the Marquis of Jin return to his country? Now let us return to Duke Hui of Jin, who was being held at Lingtai Mountain. He believed that Lady Muji also blamed him, and he had no idea that she had put on mourning clothes and pleaded with Duke Mu of Qin on his behalf. He said to Han Jian, When my late father discussed the marriage alliance with Qin, he had Shi Su perform divination. The results said that the western neighbor would be at odds with us, and that the marriage would bring harm. If they had listened to Shi Su back then, none of this would have happened. Han Jian replied, The former ruler failed because he lacked virtue in governance. How can this be blamed on marrying into Qin? If the ruler of Qin did not respect the bond between our two states, how could you still be alive here today? Since the ruler of Qin invited you here, he will not turn Jin into an enemy again. Please think carefully, my lord. Duke Hui gave a strange laugh and did not believe him. Not long after, Duke Mu of Qin sent Gongsunji to Lingtai Mountain to visit Duke Hui and inform him that he would be allowed to return home. Gongsunji said, Many ministers in Qin want you imprisoned here for life. Only our ruler, because the lady climbed the high terrace and pleaded for you, could not bear to harm the bond between husband and wife. As for the 5 cities you once promised to give Qin, please hand them over at once. Also, send Crown Prince Yu to Qin as a hostage. Once this is done, you may return to Jin." Only then did Duke Hui realize that Lady Muji had spoken for him. He felt deeply ashamed and immediately sent the grandee Shiqi back to Jin, instructing Lu Sheng to handle the ceding of territory and the sending of the crown prince as a hostage. Lu Sheng went to see Duke Mu of Qin and presented maps of the 5 cities, along with grain, money, and household registers, expressing Jin's willingness to send a hostage in exchange for its ruler. Duke Mu asked, "Why has Crown Prince Yu not arrived yet?" Liu Shen replied, "Jin is unstable at the moment, so the Crown Prince remains in the state. Once our ruler returns to Jin, the Crown Prince can come immediately." "Why is Jin unstable?" Duke Mu asked. Liu Sheng said, "Upright men all understand Jin's wrongdoing and feel only gratitude for your grace. Petty men, however, do not recognize Jin's guilt and instead want revenge against Qin. That is the source of the instability." Duke Mu asked again, "Do the people of Jin still expect their ruler to return?" Liu Sheng answered, "The gentlemen believe he will return, so they insist on sending the crown prince as a hostage to make peace with Qin. The petty men believe he will never return, so they insist on setting up the crown prince as ruler to resist Qin. In my humble view, holding our ruler establishes authority, while releasing him demonstrates virtue. Combining authority and virtue is exactly how a hegemon leads the feudal states. Otherwise, it would wound the hearts of the gentlemen and stir up the resentment of the petty men. How would that benefit Qin? To abandon past merit and ruin the great work of hegemony is surely not something you would do." Duke Mu laughed and said, "My thinking is the same as yours." He ordered Mingming to mark out the boundaries of the 5 cities and station officials there. Then he welcomed Duke Hui to a lodge outside the city, treated him as an honored guest, and presented 7 sacrificial offerings. Afterward, he sent Gongsun Ji to escort Duke Hui back to Jin together with Liu Sheng. Duke Hui was defeated in the 9th month and only returned home in the 11th month. The ministers who had been captured with him also returned together. Only Guo Shi died of illness in Qin. When Yi Ishi heard that Duke Hui was returning, he said to Qing Zheng, "You used the excuse of saving the ruler to draw Han Jian away, which prevented him from capturing the ruler of Qin alive. Because of this, our ruler was taken captive. Now that he is returning, you will surely be executed. Why not flee to another state to hide?" Qing Zhen replied, "Military law says that soldiers who lose a battle deserve death, and commanders who are captured deserve death. How much more so for someone who caused the ruler to suffer such great humiliation? If the ruler had not returned, I would still have taken my family to Qin to die. Now that he has returned, how can I evade punishment? I stay here so that the ruler may carry out the law on me, to satisfy his anger and to show all ministers that crimes cannot be escaped. Why should I flee?" Yishi sighed and left. When Duke Hui was about to enter Jiang, Crown Prince Yu led Hu Tu, Xi Rui, Qing Zhang, Yishi, Sima Shuo, and the guard Bo Di to welcome him outside the city. From his carriage, Duke Hui saw Qing Zhang and flew into a rage. He ordered Jia Putu to summon him forward and asked, "Qing Zhang, how dare you still come to see me?" Qing Zhang answered, "If you had listened to me from the beginning and repaid the favor of borrowed grain, Qin would never have attacked Jin. If you had later listened to me and sought peace with Qin, there would have been no war. And if you had finally listened to me and not ridden the small horse, you would not have been defeated. My loyalty to you reached its utmost limit. Why should I not dare to see you?" Duke Hui said, "What do you have to say now?" Qing Zheng replied, "I have 3 crimes deserving death. First, I spoke loyal words but could not make you accept them. Second, divination said that it would be auspicious for me to drive your carriage, yet I could not make you use me. Third, I called others back in the name of saving you, yet still could not prevent you from being captured. I asked for punishment, to prove my guilt." Duke Hui had no reply and ordered Liang Yaomi to list his crimes instead. Liang Yaomi said to Qing Zhang, "Those 3 are not reasons to die. Your true crimes are 3. First, when the ruler was trapped in the mud and called for you, you ignored him. Second, I was about to capture the ruler of Qin alive, but you delayed me. Third, when all the generals were captured, you did not fight to the end, suffered no injury, and escaped safely. These are your crimes, Qingzheng said. All officers of the 3 armies are here. Let me ask one thing. Is there anyone who can sit and await punishment yet did not fight until wounded? Yes, I said to Du Kui. Qingzheng would rather die than evade punishment. That is true courage. You could pardon him and let him redeem his crime by avenging the defeat at Hanyuan. Liang Yaomi said, We have already been defeated. If we then use a guilty man to seek revenge, will not the world laugh at Jin for lacking capable men? Jiaputu also advised Du Kui. Qingzhang gave loyal advice 3 times. That can redeem his life. Killing him enforces the law, but pardoning him fulfills benevolence. Liang Yaomi replied again. A state becomes strong only through the enforcement of law. If punishment is lost, the law is destroyed. Who will obey the rules then? If Qingzhang is not killed, we can never use troops again. Du Kui ordered Sima Shou to carry out the execution at once. Qingzheng stretched out his neck and accepted death. There is a poem by Ren Xian lamenting Du Kui's narrow mind and inability to tolerate Qingzheng, who taught him to deny the grain repaid by boats, yet shelter traders and kill loyal counsel. Du Kui, rash and lacking a ruler's virtue, fit only to rot forever in Ling Tai's prison. Liang Yaomi had once surrounded Duke Mu of Qin and believed he could capture him alive, but abandoned that chance because of Qingzheng's shout to save the ruler. He deeply hated Qingzheng and longed to see him killed. When Qingzheng was executed, the sky darkened and the sun lost its light. Many ministers wept. Yishi asked permission to bury the body, saying, I do this to repay him for saving my life with his carriage. After returning home, Du Kui sent Crown Prince Yu with Gao Ji to Qin as a hostage. He also asked Qin to return the body of Tuan Yi, buried him with the rights of a high grandee, and appointed his son as a middle grandee. One day, Du Kui said to Xi Rui, During my 3 months in Qin, the only person I truly feared was Chang'er. I worried he might seize the chance to return. Now I can finally rest easy. Xi Rui replied, Chang'er, though in exile, will always be a hidden threat. Only by eliminating him can future trouble be avoided. Du Kui asked, Who can kill Chang'er for me? I will spare no reward, Xi Rui said. The guard Bo Di. When we attacked Pu City, he once cut Chang'er's clothing. He constantly fears that Chang'er will punish him if he returns. If you want Chang'er dead, no one is more suitable. Du Kui summoned Bo Di and secretly ordered him to assassinate Chang'er. Bo Di said, Chang'er has lived in the Dai lands for 12 years. The Dai state conquered Juru and obtained 2 women, Shu Gui and Ji Gui, both very beautiful. Ji Gui married Chang'er and Shu Gui married Zhao Shui, both bore sons. Ruler and ministers now enjoy family life and no longer worry about state affairs. If I go with troops, the Dai state will surely send soldiers to help Chang'er, and victory would be uncertain. I am willing to take a few strong men, slip quietly into the Dai lands, and kill him while he is out traveling. Du Kui praised this plan and gave Bo Di 2,000 taels of gold to recruit fighters, ordering him to assassinate Chang'er. He added, You must depart within 3 days. If you succeed, you will be heavily rewarded. As the saying goes, if you do not wish others to know, do not do it yourself. Although Du Kui entrusted this matter only to Bo Di, many palace attendants learned of it. Hu Tu heard that Bo Di was spending gold freely to recruit strongmen and became suspicious. He secretly investigated. As an old state uncle, Hu Tu was familiar with all the attendants, and someone soon leaked the plot. Hu Tu was shocked. He quickly wrote a secret letter and sent it overnight to the Bod lands to warn Chang'er. On that very day, Chang'er was hunting by the Wei River with the ruler of the Dai state. Suddenly, a man rushed into the hunting grounds and asked to see the Hu brothers, saying, The old state uncle has sent a letter. Hu Mo and Hu Yan said in surprise, Father rarely writes to us. If he has sent a letter now, something serious must have happened in Jin. They immediately summoned the man. The messenger handed over the letter, bowed once, and left. The brothers opened it at once and read, The ruler secretly plans to assassinate Chang'er and has sent the guard Bo Dai, who will depart within 3 days. You brothers must inform the prince at once and have him flee to another state without delay. The two were greatly alarmed and immediately reported the matter to Chang'er. Chang'er said, "My wife and children are all here. This is my home. If I leave this place, where can I possibly go?" Hu Yan replied, "We stayed here not to build a family, but to preserve ourselves and wait for a greater cause. At that time, we had no strength to travel far, so we could only rest here for a while. Now we have stayed long enough. We should go to a stronger state. Bodhi's mission is probably heaven urging you to move on." Chang'er asked again, "Even if I must leave, which state should I go to?" Hu Yan answered, "Duke Huan of Qi is already advanced in age, but his hegemony still stands. He is willing to shelter exiled rulers and employ men of talent. Now that Zhong and Peng have just passed away, Qi lacks capable ministers. If you go to Qi, the ruler of Qi will surely treat you as an honored guest. If something changes in Jin, you can also rely on Qi's power to restore your state." Chang'er felt this made sense. He stopped the hunt and returned to tell his wife, Jigui, "The ruler of Jin has sent someone to assassinate me. To avoid danger, I must go to powerful states and build relations with Qin and Chu to prepare for restoring the state one day. You should raise our 2 sons with care. If after 25 years I have not returned, then you may remarry." Wei wept and said, "A man's ambition lies in the wider world. I dare not hold you back, but I am already 25 this year. After another 25 years, I would likely be old or dead. How could I remarry then? I will naturally take good care of the children. Please do not worry." Zhao Shuai also spoke privately with Shu Gui and took his leave without saying more. Early the next morning, Chang'er ordered Hu Shu to prepare the carriages, and the clerk, Tu Shu, to gather the gold and cloth. While they were speaking, Hu Mao and Hu Yan suddenly ran back in alarm and said, "My father heard that Bodhi set out the very next day after receiving his orders. He feared you might not have left yet and would be caught unprepared. There was no time to write another letter, so he sent a fast runner day and night to urge you to flee at once without delay." Chang'er was shocked and cried out, "How could Bodhi arrive so quickly?" He did not even stop to dress, and walked out of the city with Hu Mao and Hu Yan. When Hu Shu saw that the prince had already left the city, he hurriedly found only an ox cart and caught up, asking the prince to ride in it. Zhao Shui, Zhu Ji, and the others arrived one after another and followed on foot behind the cart. Chang'er asked, "Why has Toshu not arrived yet?" Someone replied, "Toshu fled with all the gold and cloth. No one knows where he went." Chang'er sighed deeply and fell into gloom. But since things had come to this, he could only move on, hurrying like a homeless dog, fleeing like a fish escaping the net. Half a day after they left the city, the ruler of the Dai state finally learned of it and wanted to send gold and silver as gifts, but it was already too late. There is an old poem describing Chang'er's departure from the Dailands, exiled among the tribes for 12 long years. A trapped dragon lay hidden, unable to rise. Why must brothers press each other so cruelly? Once more today, the road of wandering begins. Duke Hui had originally ordered Bodhi to depart within 3 days. Why then did he leave in such haste the very next day? It turned out that Bodhi was a man who lived by flattery. When Duke Xiang once sent him to attack Pusadi, Chang'er escaped, and Bodhi only managed to cut off his clothing. He believed Chang'er must hate him for this. This time, sent by Duke Hui to carry out the assassination, he could gain great reward and at the same time remove a danger to himself. So he hastily gathered several strong fighters and set out early, hoping to catch Chang'er off guard and end his life in one strike. But the old state uncle leaked the news. By the time Bodhi reached the Dailands, Chang'er was already gone. With strict border controls making passage difficult, Bodhi had no choice but to return in frustration. Duke Hui could do nothing more and had to set the matter aside. Now Chang'er traveled from the Dailands toward Qi, suffering great hardship along the way. One day, they reached the border of Wei. The gate officials asked who they were. Zhao Shui replied, "Our lord is Chang'er, a prince of Jin, now living in exile. We are heading to Qi and merely passed through your land. We ask for your consideration." The gate officials asked them to wait and quickly sent word to the ruler of Wei. Ningsu, the senior minister of Wei, urged that they be welcomed into the capital. But Duke Wen of Wei said, "I founded my state without relying on Jin's support. Although Wei and Jin share the same ancestry, we have never had dealings. Besides, chancellor is an exile, not an important figure. If we welcome him into the city, we must host banquets and give gifts. That is far too troublesome. Better to drive them away." He ordered the gate officials not to let them enter the city. Chancellor had no choice but to go around it. Wei Chou and Denji said to Chancellor, "The ruler of Wei does not understand proper conduct. You should stand outside the city and denounce him." Zhao Shui said, "Even a dragon without power is no better than an earthworm. You should endure this injustice and not blame others for lacking courtesy. It would be useless." Wei, Chou, and Denji said again, "Since he fails to act as a host, we might as well seize food from the villages of Wei to ease our hunger. They would have no grounds to blame us." Chancellor said, "Seizing food is the act of a bandit. I would rather endure hunger than become a thief." That day, they had not even eaten breakfast and could only continue on with empty stomachs. After noon, they reached a place called Wu Lu. They saw a group of farmers eating by the fields. Chancellor ordered Huyan to beg for food. Huyan went forward. The farmers asked, "Where are you travelers from?" Huyan replied, "We are from Jin. The one sitting in the cart is our lord. We have no food left and ask you to grant us a meal." The farmers laughed and said, "A grown man unable to support himself, begging food from us. We are farmers. Only by eating our fill can we plow the fields. How could we have extra grain to give others?" Huyan said, "If you cannot give us food, at least give us a vessel to hold food." The farmers mocked them, picked up a clod of earth, and handed it to him, saying, "This can be your food vessel." Wei Chou could no longer endure it and shouted angrily, "How dare these villagers insult us?" He seized their bowls and smashed them on the ground. Chancellor also grew angry and raised his whip to strike the farmers. Yan quickly stopped him and said, "A meal is easy to obtain, but land is hard to gain. Land is the foundation of a state. Now heaven uses these farmers to hand land to you. This is an omen that you will one day gain a state. Why be angry? You should step down, accept the clod of earth, and thank them." Chancellor turned anger into joy, stepped down from the cart, and bowed in thanks. The farmers did not understand and burst out laughing, saying, "This man is truly a fool." Later generations wrote a poem, "Land is the true foundation of a state. Heaven lends its hand to comfort one in distress. The wise man sees the sign before it forms," while simple farmers laugh, unaware. After traveling another 10 or so li, the followers were too hungry to walk and rested beneath a large tree. Chancellor, exhausted and starving, lay down with his head on Humao's thigh. Humao said, "Zhao Shrao still has a jar of rice. He is behind us and will arrive soon." Wei Chou said, "Even if there is a jar of rice, it would not be enough for Zhao Shai alone. I think it is long gone." They searched around for wild greens and cooked them, but Chancellor could hardly swallow them. At that moment, Jizi Tui brought a bowl of meat broth to Chancellor. It smelled rich and fragrant. Chancellor did not even speak, drinking it in a few gulps. After finishing, he asked, "Where did this meat come from?" Jizi said, "It came from my own thigh. I have heard that a filial son sacrifices himself to nourish his parents, and a loyal minister sacrifices himself to serve his ruler. Now you have no food, so I cut flesh from my thigh to fill your stomach." Chancellor was moved to tears and said, "My exile has caused you all such suffering. How could I ever repay this?" Jizi Tui replied, "I only hope you will soon return to Jin, so that the loyalty of all of us is not in vain. How would I dare seek any reward?" There is a poem praising this deed. The filial son preserves his body to honor his parents. To harm it is a shame to one's kin. Alas, Jizi Tui cut flesh to fill his lord's belly, to give one's body as arm and heart, to share fortune and disaster alike, who does not cherish what parents gave. Yet loyalty and filial piety are hard to unite, those who cling to private gain. How can they eat a ruler's stipend after a long while? Zhao Shui finally arrived. When asked why he was so late, he said, "My foot was pierced by thorns, so I fell behind." He then took out a jar of thin porridge from his basket and offered it to Chang'er. Chang'er asked, "Are you not hungry? Why did you not eat it yourself?" Zhou replied, "Though I am hungry, how could I eat before my lord?" Hu Mao joked with Wei Chou, "If this porridge had fallen into your hands, it would already be digesting in your belly." Wei Chou blushed and stepped aside without another word. Chang'er then gave the porridge to Zhao Shuai. Zhao Shuai could not refuse, so he fetched water from the river, diluted the porridge, and shared it so everyone could have a bowl. Chang'er sighed inwardly, deeply admiring Zhao Shuai's loyalty and righteousness. Thus, they begged for food along the way, half hungry and half full, until they finally reached Qi. Duke Huan of Qi had long heard that Prince Chang'er was a man of great virtue. As soon as he learned that Chang'er had entered his territory, he immediately sent envoys to welcome him outside the city, invited him into a guest residence, and hosted a banquet. During the feast, Duke Huan asked, "Have you brought your family with you?" Chang'er replied, "I am in exile. I can barely protect myself. How could I bring my family along?" Duke Huan said, "When I sleep alone for one night, it feels as long as a year. You travel with no one to attend to you. I truly worry for you." He then selected a woman of good appearance from the Qi royal clan and gave her to Chang'er as a concubine. He also presented 20 carriages, so that all who followed now had transport. Grain and meat were sent daily without interruption. Chang'er was overjoyed and exclaimed, "I had long heard that the ruler of Qi loves talent and respects worthy men. Today, I truly believe it. With such conduct, how could he fail to achieve hegemony?" This took place in the 8th year of King Xiang of Zhou and the 42nd year of Duke Huan of Qi. Duke Huan of Qi, ever since he had handed state affairs to Bao Shuya 2 years earlier, followed Guanzhong's last advice and drove Xu Diao, Yang Wu, and Kai Feng out of court. But from that time on, he found no taste in food and no rest in sleep. All day he kept a stiff face, and he no longer even looked like he could smile. Chen Weizhi saw this and advised him, saying, "My lord, after you expelled Xu Diao and the others, the state did not become better governed, yet you grow thinner and more worn every day. I think it is because the attendants at your side cannot understand your heart. Since that is so, why not call those 3 back?" Duke Huan said, "In my heart I also miss those 3 men, but I already drove them away. If I summon them back, I fear Bao Shuya will be displeased." Chang Weiji said, "Beside Bao Shuya, are there not attendants like Xu Diao as well? My lord, you are growing older and older. Why do you torment yourself like this? First summon Yang Wu back on the excuse of seasoning and cooking. Then the other 2 will come back without being invited." Duke Huan trusted her words and ordered Yang Wu to return to the palace to take charge of his kitchen. When Bao Shuya saw this, he remonstrated with Duke Huan, saying, "My lord, have you forgotten what Guanzhong said? Why have you summoned Yang Wu back again?" Duke Huan replied, "These 3 men benefit me and do no harm to the state." Guanzhong's words were likely too harsh. Not only did he refuse to listen to Bao Shuya, he also summoned Kai Feng and Xu Diao back into the palace, restored their offices, and kept them at his side to serve him. Bao Shuya felt unhappy in his heart. He grew depressed and fell ill, and before long he died of sickness. From that point on, Xi's government began to worsen. What happened afterward? We will speak of it later. Now to continue. Duke Huan of Qi violated Guanzhong's last warning and put Xu Diao, Kai Feng, and Yang Wu back into power. Bao Shuya's remonstrance failed, and he died from illness. These 3 men became even more reckless. They saw Duke Huan as old and weak, so they seized control of the court, acted with unchecked authority, and did whatever they pleased. Those who followed the 3 men prospered, even without rank. They could become rich. Those who opposed the 3 men perished. Even if they were not killed, they would be driven away. Let us set that aside for the moment. At that time, there was a famous physician in the state of Zhang. His surname was Qin, his given name was Huan, and his courtesy name was Yu Ren. He had long been living in the village of Lu in the state of Qi, and people called him the Lu physician. When he was young, he ran an inn. A man named Chan Sang once stayed there. Qinghua knew at once that this was no ordinary person. He treated him warmly and did not blame him for speaking bluntly. To repay him, Chan Sangjun gave him a miraculous medicine and told him to take it with water from the upper pool. After Qin Huang took it, his eyes became like a bright mirror. He could see ghosts in the dark, and he could see living people through walls when he treated patients. There was nothing inside the 5 organs and 6 bowels that he could not see clearly. Everything was obvious at a glance. Calling it pulse-taking was only a name. In the time of the Yellow Emperor Su Yongyan, there had been a man named Bian Kui, who was famous for medical skill. When people saw how powerful the Lu physician's methods were, they also called him Bian Kui. In earlier years, Bian Kui once traveled to the state of Guo. By chance, the crown prince of Guo suddenly fell gravely ill and was declared dead. Bian Kui came to the palace and said that he could cure the crown prince. A palace guard said, "The crown prince is already dead. How can someone return from death?" Bian Kui replied, "Please, let me try." When the ruler of Guo heard this, he was so moved that tears fell. He immediately invited Bian Kui inside to treat the case. Bian Kui had his student Yang Li use stone needles to perform acupuncture. Before long, the crown prince woke up. Then he was given herbal medicine, and after 20 days, his illness was completely cured. Everyone praised Bian Kui for having medical skill that could bring a person back from the brink of death. Friends, please note of this character, Bian Kui, because he will also appear later in another book we will talk about. Some lovers of Chinese novels have likely heard of it. It is called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Romance of the Three Kingdoms is the first fully mature long chapter-based historical novel in Chinese literary history. It was written by a scholar in the late Yuan and early Ming period, using the history of the Three Kingdoms as its background. It takes Chen Shou's records of the Three Kingdoms from the Jin dynasty as its historical framework, together with Pei Songji's annotations from the southern dynasties. But it also blends many folk legends, story scripts, and opera elements that had circulated since the Tang and Song periods. Along with Water Margin, Dream of the Red Chamber, and The Journey to the West, that we all know, it stands as one of China's 4 great classical novels. If you enjoy learning about Chinese history and culture, you can look forward to our later reading and discussion of this book. Now let us return to our story. Bian Kui traveled widely and cured countless patients. One day he arrived in the city of Linzi and had an audience with Duke Huan of Qi. He said, "My lord has an illness. It is still only beneath the skin, but if it is not treated, it will go deeper." Duke Huan replied, "I have no illness." Bian Kui took his leave and left the palace. 5 days later, he saw Duke Huan again and said, "My lord's illness has entered the blood vessels. It must be treated." Duke Huan did not take it seriously. Another 5 days passed. Bian Kui met Duke Huan again and said, "My lord's illness has gone deep into the stomach and intestines. You should treat it at once." Duke Huan still ignored him. After Bian Kui withdrew, Duke Huan sighed and said, "Doctors who chase merit go too far. I have no illness, yet he insists I do." 5 more days passed. Bian Kui again sought an audience with Duke Huan. As soon as he saw Duke Huan's face, he turned and left without a word. Duke Huan sent someone to ask why. Bian Kui answered, "My lord's illness has already entered the bone marrow. When it is beneath the skin, it can be cured with hot compresses and soothing treatment. When it is in the blood vessels, it can be cured with stone needles. When it is in the stomach and intestines, it can be treated with medicinal wine. But now it has entered the bone marrow. Even an immortal could not save him, so I can only leave without speaking." 5 more days passed, and Duke Huan of Qi truly fell ill. He sent someone to summon Bian Kui, but the innkeeper said, "Master Qin packed his luggage and left 5 days ago." Duke Huan learned this and regretted it deeply. Duke Huan had earlier had 3 principal wives, Wang Ji, Su Ji, and Kai Ji, but none had sons. Wang Ji and Su Ji died first, and Kai Ji returned to the state of Kai. Later he had 6 secondary consorts. Because they were favored, their treatment and ritual rank were no different from a wife, so they were called consorts of equal standing. Each of the 6 bore 1 son. The first was Chang Ji, who bore Prince Wu Kuai. The second was Xiao Ji, who bore Prince Yuan. The third was Zhen Ji, who bore Prince Shao. The fourth was Ge Ying, who bore Prince Pan. The fifth was Mi Ji, who bore Prince Shengren. The sixth was Song Huazi, who bore Prince Yang. Among the other concubines, many also had sons, but they were not counted among these 6 consorts. Among the 6 consorts, only Chang Weiji had served Duke Huan the longest. Among the 6 princes, only Wu Kui was the oldest. Duke Huan's favorite attendants, Yang Wu and Shu Diao, were both close with Wei Ji. So Shu Diao asked Duke Huan to agree to make Wu Kui crown prince and heir to the throne. But later Duke Huan came to favor Prince Zhou for his virtue. He discussed it with Guan, and at the Kwai-Kyu assembly he instructed Duke Shang of Song, deciding to make Prince Zhou the crown prince. The Prince of Wei, Kai Fang, was close only with Prince Pan, and he also sought the crown prince position for Pan. Prince Shangren liked giving to others and had strong support among the people, and because his mother Mi Ji was favored, he too began to covet the position. Only Prince Yang, whose background was low, stayed obedient and kept to his place. The other 5 princes all built their own factions. They suspected and hated one another, like 5 tigers, each hiding claws and fangs, waiting only to fight and kill. Although Duke Huan could still be called a wise ruler, time had dulled his edge. He had been hegemon for many years and felt satisfied. He also indulged in wine and pleasure and had no mind for restraint. Now that he was old, he naturally grew muddled, and on top of that, he brought petty men back into service. They blinded his judgment. He only knew enjoyment and did not think of worry. He listened to slander and did not trust loyal advice. Those 5 princes all had their mothers beg Duke Huan to make their own son crown prince. Duke Huan only gave vague promises and did not handle the matter with any decisiveness. As the saying goes, if a person has no long-term concern, there will be immediate trouble. Now Duke Huan suddenly fell ill and could not rise from bed. When Yongwu saw that even Bian Kui had left without a word, he judged that the illness could not be cured. He then discussed a plan with Shu Diao. They hung a wooden placard at the palace gate, falsely claiming it was Duke Huan's order, and it read, "I suffer from a sickness of palpitations and unrest. I fear hearing noise. Whether ministers or common people, none are allowed to enter the palace. I ordered temple attendant Diao to guard the palace gate strictly. Yang Wu will lead the palace guards in patrol. All state affairs will be reported after I recover." Using this, Yang Wu and Shu Diao seized the palace gates. They allowed only Prince Wu Kui to stay in Chang Weiji's quarters. When the other princes came to ask after Duke Huan, they were not allowed to enter or see him. 3 days later, Duke Huan had not died, so Yang Wu and Shu Diao drove out all attendants who served him, male and female alike, and blocked the palace gates. They also built a wall 3 zhong high around Duke Huan's bedchamber, sealing inside and outside so completely that even wind could not pass through. Only one small opening was left at the base of the wall, like a dog hole. Morning and night, they sent a young palace servant to crawl in to check whether Duke Huan was alive or dead. At the same time, they reorganized the palace guard units and prepared defenses in case the princes tried to cause an uprising. Now Duke Huan lay on his bed, unable to rise. He called for the attendants at his side, but not a single person answered. He could only stare with wide-open eyes, blankly looking ahead. He suddenly heard a thud, as if someone had fallen from above. A moment later, that person really did push open a window and jump in. Duke Huan looked up. It was his concubine Yan Er. He said to her, "My belly is hungry. I want to drink a little porridge. Bring me some." Er replied, "There is no porridge." Duke Huan said again, "Then bring some hot water to ease my thirst." Er replied, "There is no hot water either." Duke Huan asked, "Why?" Er replied, "Yi Ya and Shu Diao have started a rebellion. They have sealed the palace gates and built a wall 3 zhong high, cutting off inside and outside. No one can pass. So how could there be food or water?" Duke Huan asked again, "Then how did you get in?" Er replied, "I once received your grace's favor, so I did not care about my life. I climbed the wall and came in, because I wanted to serve you one last time." Duke Huan asked, "Where is Crown Prince Zhou?" Er replied, "He is also blocked outside the palace gate by those 2 men. He cannot enter." Duke Huan let out a long sigh and said, "Guanzhong truly was a sage. A sage's sight really reaches far. I was foolish myself, and I deserved this ending." After saying that, he cried out loudly, "Heaven, heaven, is this how I shall end my life?" He shouted several times, spat out several mouthfuls of blood, and said to Er, "I have 6 beloved concubines and more than 10 sons, yet not one is by my side. Only you are here to see me off. When I think of how I never treated you generously before, I feel deeply ashamed." Er replied, "Please take care of your body. If something unfortunate happens to you, I am willing to die and follow you." Duke Huan sighed and said, "If I am without awareness after death, then so be it. But if I do have awareness, What face will I have to meet Guan Zhong under the yellow springs?" After speaking, he covered his face with his sleeve, sighed several times, and died. Duke Guan had ruled for 43 years. He died at the age of 73. Master Qian Yuan wrote a poem praising Duke Guan, saying in meaning, "When the Zhou royal house moved east and the old order collapsed, he was the first to call the states to honor the Zhou king together. He campaigned south and forced the state of Chu to present its proper tribute, and he opened the north and pushed back the northern tribes, expanding the borders. He protected Wei and preserved Xing, making his benevolence known, and he set clear rules in the matter of choosing an heir, making his sense of right and order widely praised. The spring and autumn annals approves him as upright rather than crafty, and among the 5 hegemons, his achievements were the strongest." Yan Xian also wrote a short verse, lamenting that Duke Guan was a hero all his life, yet ended with no good outcome. Its meaning is, for more than 40 years he stood as hegemon, crushing the strong and facing none as an equal. But once he lay sick, Ye Ya and Shu Diao ran wild, and only then did people see that Guan Zhong's warning could not be ignored, even after his death. When Yan Er saw that Duke Guan was dead, she wept bitterly. She wanted to call outsiders, but the wall was too high and her voice could not carry out. She wanted to climb the wall and leave, but inside the wall there was nothing to step on. After thinking again and again, she sighed and said, "I once said, I will die to accompany my lord. As for preparing the coffin and the burial, that is not something a woman like me can understand." She took off her clothes and covered Duke Guan's body with them. Then she dragged over 2 window frames and placed them on top, as a rough sign of covering him. She knelt beside the bed and knocked her head to the ground, saying, "My lord's spirit, do not go far. Wait for me, and we will travel together." After speaking, she smashed her head into a pillar. Her brains burst out, and she died. That night, a young palace attendant crawled in through the hole in the wall. He saw a corpse lying in a pool of blood beneath a pillar in the bedchamber. In panic, he crawled back out and reported to Yang Wu and Shu Diao, saying, "The ruler has died by smashing into a pillar." The 2 did not believe it. They ordered their men to dig open the wall and went to see for themselves. It was a woman's corpse, and they were shocked. Someone recognized her and said, "This is Yan Er." They looked again. On Duke Guan's ivory-decorated bed, covered by 2 window frames, Duke Guan lay silent and unmoving, with no sign of awareness. No one even knew when he had stopped breathing. Truly tragic. When Shu Diao saw this, he wanted to discuss announcing the mourning. Yang Wu said, "Do not rush. We must first secure the ruler's position for the eldest prince. Only then can we handle the funeral. That way we can prevent the princes from fighting over the throne." Shu Diao immediately agreed. The 2 went to Chang Weiji's palace and said to her, "The former ruler has passed away. By the order of age, it should be your son who succeeds to the throne. But when the former ruler was alive, he entrusted Prince Zhou to Duke Zhang of Song and made him crown prince. Many ministers know this. If they learn the former ruler is dead, they will certainly support the crown prince. By our plan, it is better to seize this night. While everything is rushed and unprepared, we will lead the palace guards, kill the crown prince, and push the eldest prince onto the throne. Then the great matter will be settled." Chang Weiji said, "I am only a woman. You 2 must handle it yourselves." So Yang Wu and Shu Diao each led several hundred palace guards and charged toward the eastern palace to seize Prince Zhao. Now Prince Zhao had been unable to enter the palace to check on his father's illness, and he was depressed. That night he sat alone under a lamp. His mind drifted, half dream and half waking, and he saw a woman walk up and say, "Crown Prince, why do you not flee at once? Great disaster is about to fall. I am Yan Er. By the former ruler's command, I have come to warn you." Shao was about to ask more, when the woman shoved him. It felt like falling into a bottomless abyss. He suddenly woke up. Where was any woman? Prince Shao calmed himself and thought, "This omen is strange. I cannot ignore it." He quickly called for guards to bring a lamp and follow him. He slipped out through a side gate on foot, quietly reached the house of the High Minister Gao Hu, and knocked urgently. Gao Hu opened the door and brought Prince Shao inside. He asked why the crown prince had come at midnight. Prince Shao told him everything about the dream. Gao Hu said, "The ruler has been ill for half a month. Traitors have sealed the palace gates. Inside and outside are cut off, and no news passes. This dream is more bad than good." The woman in the dream spoke of the former ruler, which likely means the ruler has already passed away. This matter is better believed than dismissed. "You should temporarily leave the state, in case something happens," Prince Zhao asked. "Where can I go to stay safe?" Gao Hu replied. "The ruler once entrusted you to the Duke of Song. "You should go to Song. The Duke of Song will surely help you. I am a minister charged with guarding the state. I dare not flee with you, but I have a student, Ku Yao, who now holds the key to the east gate. I will send someone to have him open the gate. You can leave the city tonight." Before he finished speaking, a servant came to report, "Palace guards have surrounded the eastern palace." Prince Zhou heard this and turned pale. Gao Hu had him change clothes, dressing like one of Gao Hu's men. He also sent a trusted follower to go with him. They went to the east gate and ordered Ku Yao to open it and let the crown prince out. Ku Yao said, "We still do not know whether the ruler lives or dies. If I let the crown prince go in secret, I cannot escape punishment, and the crown prince has no one at his side to serve him. If you do not sanction me, I am willing to flee with you to Song." Prince Zhao was overjoyed and said, "If you can go with me, it is exactly what I hope for." Ku Yao opened the city gate. He let Prince Zhao sit in a carriage, and he himself drove it, hurrying toward the state of Song. Now to speak of the other side, Yang Wu and Xu Diao led palace guards to surround the eastern palace and searched everywhere, but they could not find Prince Zhao. As the fourth watch of the night approached, Yang Wu said, "We surrounded the eastern palace without authority, only to catch him by surprise. If daylight comes and the other princes learn of this, and they seize the court first, then everything will be ruined. Better to return at once and raise the eldest prince to the throne. We will watch the mood of the court and then plan again." Xu Diao said, "That is exactly what I want." They led the guards back, but before they could reach the palace, they saw the gates of the court already open, and civil and military officials were pouring in. These officials had heard that Yang Wu and Xu Diao led guards out of the palace. They knew something had happened inside, so they came to the officials' hall to ask for news. At this time, the palace had already leaked the news that Duke Huan was dead and that the eastern palace had been surrounded. The officials knew the traitors were stirring chaos, and they argued among themselves, saying, "Prince Zhao was appointed by the former ruler. If he suffers harm, how can we still face our duty as ministers?" In small groups, they were discussing going to protect the crown prince, when they happened to see Yang Wu and Xu Diao returning with guards. The officials surged forward and shouted questions at them, asking, "Where is the crown prince?" Yang Wu answered, "Prince Wu Kai is in the palace." Everyone shouted, "Wu Kai was never formally appointed by the former ruler. He is not our ruler. We want to make Prince Zhao the ruler." Xu Diao gripped his sword and roared, "Prince Zhao has already been driven away. Now we follow the former ruler's final command and enthrone the eldest son, Wu Kai. Whoever refuses will be killed on the spot." When the officials heard this, they were furious. They shouted and cursed, "It is you treacherous ministers. You take advantage of the former ruler's death, bully the crown prince, and replace the old with the new by force. If you enthrone Wu Kai, we swear we will not serve in this court." Then a grand officer named Guan stepped forward and shouted, "First we beat these two traitors to death today, cut off the root of disaster, and then discuss everything else." He raised his ivory court tablet and struck at Xu Dao's forehead. Xu Dao lifted his sword to block it. The officials were about to rush in to help Guan when Yang Wu shouted, "Guards, why are you not moving? What do we feed you for?" Several hundred guards surged forward together, raising weapons, slashing and stabbing wildly at the officials. The ministers had no weapons in their hands. They were few against many, weak against strong. How could they withstand it? It was as if the white jade steps became a battlefield, and the golden hall turned into a place of death. About 3 out of 10 of the officials died under the blades of the disorderly troops. Many others were wounded and fled out of the court gate in the chaos. Yang Wu and Xu Diao scattered the officials by slaughter. By the time dawn fully broke, they brought Prince Wu Kui out and had him ascend the throne in the court hall. Inside the palace, guards rang bells and beat drums. Armored soldiers lined both sides. But below the golden hall, the officials who should have knelt to congratulate the new ruler were only Yang Wu and Xu Diao. Wu Kui felt both ashamed and angry. Yang Wu could only report, saying, "The state mourning has not yet been announced. The officials do not yet know to send off the former ruler. How would they come to greet the new ruler? We must summon the 2 senior ministers, Guo Yizheng and Gao Hu. Only then can we rally the officials and press everyone down." Wu Kui nodded and immediately sent guards to summon Right Minister Guo Yizheng and Left Minister Gao Hu. These 2 were ministers appointed by the Zhou Son of Heaven to supervise the state. Their families had served as top ministers for generations. All officials respected them, so they were summoned first. When Guo Yizheng and Gao Hu saw palace attendants come with summons, they knew Duke Huan was dead. They did not put on court dress. They immediately wore mourning hemp and entered the court to mourn. Yang Wu and Xu Diao hurried to block them outside the court gate and said, "Today the new ruler ascends the hall. Please put on auspicious robes. The two elders answered in one voice. Before the former ruler is buried, to bow to a new ruler first? What kind of ritual is that? All the princes are sons of the former ruler. How can we choose among them? Whoever can announce the mourning for the former ruler, we will support him as ruler. Yonggu and Shu Diao had no words for a moment. Outside the court gate, the two elder ministers knelt toward the empty air and wept loudly. Then they turned and left the palace. Wu Kui said, "My father's mourning has not been announced, and the ministers do not submit. What should we do now?" Shu Diao said, "Things have reached this point. It is like fighting a tiger. Only the stronger side can win. My lord holds the main hall. We line troops on both sides. If any other prince enters court, we have the soldiers seize him." Wu Kui followed his advice. Chang Guiji sent out all palace guards. She also had palace attendants put on military dress. Among the palace women, those who were tall and strong were also made to dress as guards. Yongwu and Shu Dao each took half and stationed them in small rooms on both sides. Let us set that aside for now. Now, Wei Prince Kaifang heard that Yongwu and Shu Dao had enthroned Wu Kui. He said to Prince Pan, the son of Gi Ying, "Prince Zhou has gone, who knows where. If they can enthrone Wu Kui, why can they not enthrone you?" He then gathered household fighters and privately raised men who were not afraid to die, and seized the right hall as his base. Prince Zhongren, the son of Mi Ji, and Prince Yuan, the son of Xiao Weiji, also discussed together, saying, "We are all true flesh and blood of the former ruler. The realm belongs to each of us in some share. Prince Pan has seized the right hall. Let us seize the left hall. If Prince Zhao returns, we all yield to him. If he does not return, we divide Qi into 4 parts, 1 part for each of us." The two also brought their household guards and the retainers they had long kept. They came in formation. Prince Yuan set camp at the left hall. Prince Zhongren set camp at the court gate. They agreed to support each other like horns on a beast. Yongwu and Shu Dao feared the 3 princes had many men, so they held the main hall tightly and did not dare to attack. The 3 princes also feared the strength of Yongwu and Shu Dao, so each held his own camp and guarded carefully. It was truly as if the court had become enemy states, and the roads had no travelers. A poem says it clearly in meaning. Within the phoenix towers and dragon halls, tiger and leopard cries shook the air, and spears and armor filled the red steps. It was plainly 4 tigers fighting over torn meat. Who among them would willingly bow his head and submit? At that time, only Prince Yang was timid and fearful. He fled to Qin, and Duke Mu of Qin appointed him as a grand officer. Now, after the officials learned that the crown prince had fled the state, the court had no ruler. Everyone shut their doors and would not come out. Only the old ministers, Guo Yizhong and Gao Hu, felt as if their hearts were being stabbed. They wanted to break the deadlock, but they could not think of a good way. So the standoff continued, and in the blink of an eye more than 2 months passed. Gao Hu said, "All the princes only know how to fight for the throne. They do not think about announcing mourning for the former ruler. Today I will fight to the end. Even if I must die, I will do it." Guo Yizhong said, "You go first to persuade them. I will follow after. I would rather give up this old life to repay the favor of salary and rank we have received from the state across generations." Gao Hu said again, "If only the 2 of us speak, what use is that? Anyone who eats Qi's salary is a minister. Let us go door to door and gather them all. Let us enter the court together and recommend Prince Wu Kui to take charge of the funeral." "How about that?" Guo Yizhong said. "When choosing a son, one should first choose the eldest. Supporting Wu Kui is not without proper grounds." So the 2 men went in different directions and called on the ministers everywhere. When the officials saw the 2 elder ministers taking the lead, they finally dared to come out. They put on mourning clothes and followed them into court. Saidiao stopped the crowd and asked, "Elder ministers, what does it mean for you to come here?" Gao Hu replied, "The princes are fighting each other, and it will never end. We have come only to ask Prince Wu Kui to preside over the funeral. We have no other intention." Saidiao heard this, saluted Gao Hu, and invited him inside. Gao Hu beckoned with his hand. Guo Yizhong and the ministers filed in, one after another, and all stood below the court hall. Gao Hu asked Wu Kui, "We have heard that a father's and mother's kindness is as great as heaven and earth, so a son must respect them while they live, and after they die, he must bury them. We have never heard of a man whose father dies, yet he does not bury him and instead fights for wealth and rank. Also, the ruler is the model for the people. If the ruler is not filial to his father, how can the people be loyal to their ruler? The former ruler has been dead for 67 days, and still he has not been placed in a coffin. You occupy the main hall, but how can your heart be at peace?" After he spoke, All the ministers threw themselves to the ground and wept loudly. Wu Kui also wept and said, "My unfilial guilt is greater than the sky, but it is not that I do not want to announce mourning for my father. It is Prince Yuan and the others who forced me." Guan Yizhong said, "The crown prince has fled to another state. Among the princes you are the eldest. If you can preside over the funeral and gather in the former ruler, then the throne will naturally be yours. Prince Yuan and the others may hold different gates and halls, but I will blame them with righteous principle. Which of them would dare to compete with you?" When Wu Kui heard this, he stopped his tears and bowed to thank everyone. He said, "This is exactly what I have been hoping for." Gao Hu then ordered Yongwu and Shu Dao to keep guarding the palace halls as before. Any prince who came wearing mourning hemp was to be allowed into the palace. But if anyone came with weapons, they were to be seized at once and charged. Xidiao went first to Duke Huan's bedchamber to arrange the burial and coffin matters. Now, Duke Huan's body had been lying on the bed for a long time with no one to care for it. Even though it was winter, the blood and flesh were in terrible disorder, and the stench of death rose upward. Many worms and insects appeared and crawled out through the wall. At first, people did not know where the insects came from. When they entered the bedchamber and lifted the window frames, they saw insects clinging to the bones. Everyone felt miserable at the sight. Wu Kui cried out loud. The ministers also wept without stopping. That same day they brought a coffin and dressed the body. Because the skin and flesh had rotted beyond recognition, they could only wrap it in robes and place it in the coffin in a hurried, rough way. Only Yanir looked just as she did in life, with no change in her body at all. Gao Hu and the others knew she was a loyal and heroic woman, and they sighed again and again. They also ordered a coffin to be brought and dressed her body. Gao Hu and the others, leading the ministers, recommended Wu Kui to take the position of chief mourner. Everyone wept and vowed in turn. That night, they all slept beside the coffins. Now, Prince Yuan, Prince Pan, and Prince Xiangren had been camped outside. They saw the two elder ministers, Gao Hu and Guo Yizhong, enter the palace with the ministers in mourning clothes, and they did not know what was happening. Later, they heard that Duke Huan had been placed in the coffin, and the ministers had all recommended Wu Kui preside over the mourning and support him as ruler. They said to each other, "With Gao and Guo presiding, we cannot compete with Wu Kui." So they dismissed their troops. They all put on mourning hemp and entered the palace to mourn. When the brothers met, each one wept loudly. If Gao and Guo had not persuaded Wu Kui, no one knows how this would have ended. Mr. Hu Zhang wrote a poem lamenting this event. Its meaning is, he rejected loyal ministers and favored petty flatterers, and this led his own blood relatives into wild conflict. If Gao and Guo had not stepped in to reconcile, the bones would have piled on the bed, and the burial would not even have been done. Now, Crown Prince Zhou of Qi fled to the state of Song and met Duke Xiang of Song. He knelt on the ground and cried, telling how Yang Wu and Shu Diao had caused chaos. Duke Xiang of Song summoned his ministers and said, "In the past, Duke Huan of Qi entrusted Prince Xiao to me and made him crown prince. Counting on my fingers, it has been 10 years. I have kept this matter in my heart and dared not forget it. Now Yang Wu and Shu Diao rebel, and the crown prince has been driven out and has come to rely on me. I want to gather the other lords, punish Qi for its crimes, and help Crown Prince Zhao restore his throne. Then I will return. If this succeeds, it will make my name famous among the lords. Then I can call the lords into alliance and inherit Duke Huan's leadership. What do you all think?" A minister stepped forward and said, "Song has 3 ways in which it is inferior to Qi. How can we achieve hegemonic leadership among the lords?" Duke Xiang looked and saw that it was his elder brother, Prince Mu Yi, styled Ziyu. Because Mu Yi had once yielded the ruler's position to him, he had been made chief minister. Duke Xiang asked, "Ziyu says there are 3 ways we are inferior to Qi. Which 3? Mu Yi replied, "Qi has the strategic barriers of Mount Tai and the Bohai Sea, and the wealth of Langya and Jimo. But Song is small and thin in land. We have few soldiers and little grain. That is the first. Qi has the families of Gao and Guo serving for generations as high ministers and handling court affairs. It also had Guanzhong, Ningqi, Xipeng, and Shuya debating state matters together. But Song lacks full civil and military strength and lacks worthy talent. That is the second. When Duke Huan attacked the mountain Rong in the north, he had Yuer to guide the way. When he hunted outside the city, a strange serpent spirit showed its true form. But this year in Song, in the first month of spring, 5 stars fell to the ground and became meteor stones. In the second month, there was a strange wind, and the Yi bird flew away. These are signs sent down from heaven. They mean seeking advance but receiving retreat. An inauspicious omen, that is the third. With these 3, Song can barely protect itself. How can we spare time to look after others? Duke Zhong said, "In what I do, I take benevolence and righteousness as my foundation. If I do not save Duke Huan's orphan, that is not benevolence. If I accept Duke Huan's trust and then abandon it, that is not righteousness." So he informed the other lords about receiving Crown Prince Zhou and preparing to punish Qi, and he set an agreement to gather next spring outside Qi's suburbs. When the proclamation reached Wei, the Grand Officer Ning Su said, "When appointing an heir, one should appoint the legitimate son. If there is no legitimate son, then one should appoint the eldest. That is the normal rule of ritual. Wu Kui is the eldest son, and he once protected our state of Wei and did us a favor. I hope our ruler will not take part in this." Duke Wen of Wei replied, "Prince Zhao was already made crown prince, and there is no one under heaven who does not know it. Guarding Wei is a private favor. Supporting the crown prince is a public duty. I cannot discard the public for the private." When the proclamation reached Lu, Duke Shi of Lu said, "Duke Huan entrusted Prince Zhao to Duke Xiang of Song, not to me. I only know the order of age. If Song attacks Wu Kuai, I will send troops to rescue Wu Kuai." In the 10th year of King Shang of Zhou, in the 1st year of Prince Wu Kuai of Qi, in the 3rd month, Duke Shang of Song joined forces with Wei, Cao, and Zhou to campaign against Qi and support Prince Zhao. They camped outside Qi's suburbs. At this time, Yongwu had been promoted to Middle Grand Officer and made Minister of War, holding military power. Wu Kui sent him to lead troops out of the city to resist the enemy, and ordered Si Diao to direct matters at the center. Gao Hu and Guo Yizong guarded the city. Gao Hu said to Guo Yizong, "I supported Wu Kui only because the former ruler had not yet been buried. It was not true loyalty to him. Now Crown Prince Zhao has returned and has Song's support. By principle, he is correct. By strength, he is powerful. Also, Yang Wu and Shu Diao killed the officials and seized power, causing chaos in government. They are surely the greatest danger within Qi. We should use this chance to remove them, welcome Crown Prince Zhao, and support him as ruler. Then the other princes will give up their desire for the throne, and Qi will be as stable as Mount Tai." Guo Yizhong said, "Now Yi Ya is outside leading troops. If I summon Shu Diao on the excuse of discussing state matters and kill him, then lead the officials to welcome Crown Prince Zhao as ruler and replace Wu Kui, then Yi Ya will have no way to act. Would that work?" Gao Hu replied, "That is an excellent plan." So they hid strong men on the city tower. They spread a false message that there was a major secret matter, and sent someone to invite Shu Diao to come. It was exactly like setting a mechanism to seize a fierce tiger, and arranging fragrant bait to hook a giant fish. But what will happen to Shu Dao's life? In our next episode, we will continue.
The sky in light, Nua healed the broken heart. Fuxi traced the world's design. Every age leaves stories bright. Yaya dynasty shaped bronze. Shang dynasty cast oracle bones. Thou dynasty built right. Qin dynasty forged the great walls. Han dynasty opened Silk Road winds. Three Kingdoms dynasty turned war to tales. Jin dynasty led ink and mountains bloom. Sui dynasty carved the Grand Canal. Tang dynasty crowned the world with art. Song dynasty raised learning's flame. Yun dynasty swept the Three Kingdoms dynasty turn war to tales. Qin dynasty led ink and mountains bloom. Sui dynasty carved the Grand Canal. Tang dynasty crowned the world with art. Song dynasty raised learning.